So, I've sometimes joked that there's basically two educational YouTubes, which are Dude Woe educational YouTube and actual educational YouTube. um, but I like Dude Woe educational YouTube, right? I like all these sort of science education channels that they're kind of like if you took that like Carl Sagan like Cosmos that I love Cosmos, but like if you instead of like I feel like Neil deGrasse Tyson went in the direction of like a little bit more science. So I feel like if you just take one step in the opposite direction, you get like most of those like sort of educational YouTubers, which is fine, you know. Um, I spend a lot of my time watching those. I spend most of my time on educational YouTube watching history because that's the thing that I don't already have an education in. Um, I, 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 I I find myself sort of like, I really liked John Green Crash Course World History, and I think it stood up. But then, of course, now when I rewatch it, it's like, oh, it really is a crash course. And there's, if you want to learn things in detail, there's a lot more to learn. And of course now there's even like a sort of like shorter crash course, which is Bill Wirt's history of the entire world, I guess, which I think is an extremely good. And again, it's truly like a 20-minute crash course. Like if you like you watch Crash Course History by John Green, and then you like refresh your memory and organize the timeline by watching History of the Entire World, I guess, and then you go down the rabbit hole of all the individual like pieces of history and actually learn things in detail. And so I don't know. I've been thinking about like then there's actual educational YouTube, which is where like a combination of university lectures and like people in India that just like are taking a class and they just do everyone a solid and like upload the lectures, and then also people that are like trying to advertise for their tutoring services, which is what I've now decided to do. But I have a PhD and I'm living in the United States, so I can probably do better doing that. But really, I could just try to be an actual physics professor, or at least a physics lecturer, although I haven't totally given up on being a research professor. So I don't know. I've thought about this because that I got a lot of my physics education actually from watching Leonard Susskind's physics lectures, and they really prepared me very, very well for sort of my physics undergraduate education. And I don't know. I've thought a lot about like online education, and there's a few things that I think are lacking. One is everybody's looking to replace conventional education, and that's just not possible, and I wouldn't want it to be possible. Um, part of getting an education is interacting with someone, um, not necessarily in person, but at least like directly interacting with someone where you can like get feedback and I don't know, especially things like labs. You really need to like just do the lab in person and being able to explain things to people, and especially being able to like let them work on the lab and then like get them unstuck when they're stuck instead of constantly like pestering them with your opinion on everything. Which I mean that's what a lecture is for. But also during lecture you should spend as much of your time as you can sort of mechanistically explaining how to actually do stuff. And that's why I like Leonard Suskind's lectures so much, is he spends so much time. He doesn't necessarily get hung up on like specific details of individual systems, right? He is trying to understand things in general, but he tries as much as possible to think about things concretely rather than abstraction for abstraction's sake, right? Because the purpose of abstraction is to like deal with like broader data sets concisely, right? Versus like if your abstraction is then adding contrivance and complexity, it's kind of you're not really doing things right, and I mean I guess also there's also inevitably there is a build up, right? When you have abstractions that work, you then build more complex systems out of those abstractions, and that's not really what I'm talking about. It's more this process of like making things intentionally abstract just to feel smart, basically. That I don't care for. And to be clear, this is not what I think most of these like. Basically, like they're basically like math and physics video essays that should not be thought of as actual like instruction. They're in some sense actually geared more at people like me that sort of want to remember the reasons they were inspired to do this. But they also, I think, can inspire people to learn things anew. So I've been trying to sort of like create my own like actual lecture series, which I'm sure will go nowhere. But really, I'm just trying to refresh my own knowledge so that I can get back to actual teaching. Right? I have a PhD, and the reason I got a PhD is very simple. There's this job called physics professor. I should do that.